I'm Manjari, and I must firstly admit this is my first YIM, and thank you for having me here. I am learning already from so many people around me what I missed, an opportunity I missed, but I hope that I will have a thing or two to share about my journey, which some of you might relate to, and then we can sort of discuss this in more details later. I was told we are not supposed to talk too much about the science, so no graphs, nothing. So I have tried really to keep it, science free as far as possible. So I gave this title. I was not sure whether I should have this at all because it has a mix of both positive and negative. There is cooperation and there is conflict, but this is true for all animal societies, us humans and non-human animals. And since I study cooperation and conflict in non-human animals, and while we must not draw moral lessons from animal behavior, it was very hard not to see the parallels. So I gave in, and I hope it will make sense to you. There are insights and lessons from the bird that I study, and that's what I'll talk about a bit. So my career trajectory has not been the typical you know what you want to do and then you start working towards that, and not been like that. It has been sort of a deterministic chaos kind of a thing. I wanted to actually study toxicology during my masters, but I went to the forests of southern India and fell in love with nature and decided that I should specialize in ecology, and that's what I did in Calcutta University many years ago. And then I realized that I was relating mostly to birds, which are so vocal and so conspicuous all around us. And I went to the Center for Ornithology called Salim Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History in Aniketi in Coimbatore, where I started my PhD. And after I started my PhD, I learned from others that my guide is retiring in 6 months. So someone told me, run, and never look back. So that's what I did. I ran away, and in 6 months, I went to IISc Bangalore, where I had heard about this person, the godmother of bioacoustics, Rohini Balakrishnan, and I was like, yes, I want to study bird sounds, and that's what I'm going to do. So I went to Rohini and I asked her that, this is what I want to do. I want to study birds and I want to study sound. She said, you can do the second part, but not the first one. I don't study birds, so you choose. So I decided, okay, fine, birds will have to wait. So you see, it's rarely, very rarely, that you know what you want to do and finally that's what you get. But I also feel that there is a certain value in this deterministic chaos. I learned a lot at each of these steps where I did not do what I thought I will do. And I think that has made my life richer intellectually as well as socially. So I studied, so when she said, okay, you will be studying acoustics in my lab and you choose what you want to do. Do you want to do field-based work or do you want to do lab-based work? I said, absolutely, field, not lab-based work. That's not what I want to do. So she sent me to the field. It was a rainforest, and we entered the rainforest on foot after the sundown. So this is not the typical wildlife movies that you see where people are going around in their gypsy and there will be a gunman with them and someone who will tranquilize a tiger and put a collar on them and data will come on the laptop. No, this is not that kind of work. We used to get down and walk in the forest after sundown on foot. And the problem was I did not understand my field assistant's language. He couldn't speak English and I did not know Kannada. And this is a serious problem. If he tells you have to run, you need to understand that he's asking you to run. Of course, you can make out from the body language, but it was a very strong selective force for me. So anyway, more on that later. But to study insects, I ended up studying plants, which I absolutely did not want to do. But I had no other choice to study the forest. I had to study the animals. I first had to study the forest. So I studied plant. Basically, I studied the forest structure, foliage density, leaf area index, all these kind of things. And then I did not have a 5 years PhD. It took a good 6 years. And then I decided I want on for one more year, because at that time, the idea started to come that now I have the kind of data I need to now build a virtual forest and ask the kind of questions I wanted to ask in acoustics. Since no science, we will not talk about that. But this was only possible when I have all of this data. And at that time, I had the data. So I stayed on for a few more months. To model the what we say acoustic space of the forest. How many animals are calling, where are they calling from, and what is the forest, how many animals can the forest hold acoustic space, in this acoustic space. So this is what I did for some more months. Then I got a chance to go to Bristol to study one of these very fascinating rainforest katydid, to understand its mechanics of hearing. And I was in University of Bristol. I'll tell about that a little bit. And then from there, for other reasons, I went off to University of Zurich. And then I came back to India because I was waiting for a visa for my next postdoc. And before the visa came, I got a job offer. So I was wondering, what should I do? I have now finally got the dream postdoc that I wanted, to study whales. But then I had a job offer in hand, and everybody told me this is what you should do. So I joined Mohali, and I started studying, continued to study insects, but I also went back to my first love, which is birds. We started small, but we now are a big group. So primarily what we study is understanding factors that drive signal evolution. This is acoustic signal evolution. And there can be many different factors that shape signal structure over evolutionary time. So these are the various selective forces that can shape the acoustic signals of animals. And this is a cricket, a mating pair. Cricket is a fantastic model system to study sexual selection, because the female exhibits unambiguous choice. The female walks to the male, and the female mounts the male, unlike many other animals in which the male mounts the female, so you can never dissect active female choice. But one of the factors that can drive signal evolution is sociality. And we know that our own communication, which is human language, is a very sophisticated form of language, which I could not have studied using crickets, because these are solitary animals. So then I started to study how sociality shapes signal evolution using the little brown birds. They are called Saat Bhai in Hindi and Seven Sisters in English. They are neither seven sisters nor are they seven brothers. They are called jungle babblers. You will never find them in jungles usually, and now we know they don't babble. So just a quick peep into the kind of work we do. We have to follow these birds in the field. We have to band them for individual identification and make some morphometric measurements, record their calls, and then make sense of their behavior. These are some of the social behaviors that they are showing. They are not fighting with each other. In fact, this is what we call as play behavior. They are tumbling on top of each other, and this apparently improves social bonding. There is cooperative brood care. They allogroom each other. They forage while one individual will give up the chance to forage and instead watch out for predators. They maintain territories which are very strongly defended by the groups, and these are year-long territories, and oftentimes these are long-lived birds, by the way. They can live up to 13 to 14 years, and they maintain these territories until, unless of course the group goes extinct. So, but the most fascinating thing for me is that they have a very complex form of communication, which is referential, and each call actually means something. It is not meaningless babble, quite the opposite. It's actually meaningful communication where each of these calls actually means something completely different. Okay, so they're using calls which is babble to us, but contextual communication for them. So that is all I'll tell about the science. Just to summarize, because it is about lessons we learned from this bird, they partition their day to do different kinds of activities. These birds, jungle babblers, have a complex form of communication. They have complex social lives, long-lived species. They interact with each other. They have their own social network. There is cooperation and there is conflict and there is conflict resolution. There is, while they're also known as the angry birds, but actually within group aggression is very low in these birds. We know it's again a misnomer. It's not an angry bird. Group size matters a lot and it impacts almost all their behaviors and outcomes. So the group size is important. They delay their dispersal, so they don't leave the natal group if it is time of adversity. So they stay back during time of adversity, and when the time is right, they establish their own group. The first moment they get the opportunity, they don't delay that. Okay? And the most fascinating finding, more recent finding, is that many of them disperse in coalition. So these are cooperative breeders. I may be helping to raise someone else's offspring, but then that offspring eventually will pay back by leaving the group with me in a coalition and help me establish my territory. So paying forward. Yeah. So this is how it started. The first bird I caught was actually a babbler, although different species of babbler. And now we are working on many different species of social babblers. It has been almost 2 decades. This is ISC, where most of my training started. This is where Kudremukh is. And this is what the forests look like. The last remaining tracts of virgin rainforests. And inside the forest is a heterogeneous environment. So every layer is different. And so it was very exciting to work in this forest. This is a daytime picture. Now imagine this entire thing at night. So you're entering a forest where there are animals calling around you, and all you can do is you cannot see anything, but you can hear so much. Exciting times. We did a lot of recordings. We were chased by elephants. I would never wish that upon anyone. It's a nice story to tell because I have lived to tell the tale. And we found many interesting, beautiful crickets who had very special things about their songs. But the challenges were immense. We had to do experiments in the canopy, which would be very high, sometimes 15 meters into the tree. And we had to convert ourselves into Tarzan, sometimes willy-nilly, but I learnt a lot. It was difficult. What I realized, what fieldwork taught me, is what my own resilience is. I had no idea that I could survive it. But maybe there is a survivor bias. Maybe if I were trampled under a foot of an elephant, I wouldn't be telling this. But I realized that I actually can face hardships and do a good job, reasonably good job. So the fieldwork was very important to build that confidence in me. But, field was a very beautiful, lonely and dangerous place, something that nobody usually talks about, that it can actually drive immense amount of mental health issues in people who work in the isolation of field, because you just don't get any interactions with humans. Even if you have interactions with humans, oftentimes you just cannot communicate. Communication is so essential. In fact, I really think that language is a much stronger binding force than religion can ever be. So I figured out that I can get rid of these problems only if I interact. So I cooperated with the people. This is Raghu and this is Sudhakar, my field assistant. And we met after many years again, a few years ago. We have maintained our friendship, long-term collaborations, friendships we have maintained. I learned, due to huge selective force, 2 Dravidian languages in less than 3 years. I learned both Kannada and Tamil. Kannada because I needed to survive, and Tamil because Rajinikanth. Then I collaborated. Raghu used to work on bats, and I used to work on cricket, so it was a nice team, cricket and bat. And we continued to work together. Then once I left Rohini's lab, I went to Daniel's lab to study sound perception in this fancy katydid that we had found in the rainforest, to understand mechanical sensing in these animals. Long story cut short, it was very exciting science. In very short time period, I was getting data, which is unimaginable for an ecologist. But I was sitting in a basement of this building, shining lasers at the cricketer, completely devoid of the biology in my mind, the way I have imagined and understood biology. And I discovered that this is what I don't want to do. although Daniel was very supportive and he wanted me to continue, I dispersed. I left the group and I went somewhere else. I went to the University of Zurich to work with Martha Manser because there was a prospect of working in the Kalahari meerkat project. But what I realized was it was extremely expensive fieldwork and I needed a lot of money to even see those animals. So what did I do? I was mostly applying for grants, borrowing equipments, and lamenting not working in India where we have biodiversity in our backyards. But I learned a lot about social behavior. I learned a lot about grant writing, and I identified the intersection of acoustics and social behavior, which I wanted to work on. And it was an intense period of enhancing my skill set. Of course, I also worked with this very cute captive meerkats, but yeah. Then I thought I should go back to the field and not worry about this. And I got an offer from Susan Parks, who offered to let me work on whales. But my, life never goes the way you plan it. That's why Murphy should have got the Nobel Prize. My visa was stuck. Everything was fine. Visa is stuck, and they have given me something not. It was a pink slip or a white slip, one of the slips, which they say that because my work involves signal processing, it has gone to the White House for clearance. I was like, we are looking at whales. In any case, in the meantime, I also put in exactly two job applications. One at Mohali because I happened to be in Mohali and some people happened to be there. I was never part of a YIM, so I never got this kind of an opportunity. But I had gone for some other talk and some people happened to attend my talk and they said, okay, while you're waiting for your postdoc to complete, why don't you apply to Mohali? I did that. And NICER had an ad out, NICER Bhubaneswar, specifically for ecology and evolution, so I applied for these two. What happened was the offer from Mohali, of course, I went to the interview or a job talk, all of that. It came faster than my visa. And I also got an interview call from NICER, but by the time the decision was made, I did not take the opportunity to work on whales. And instead, I decided to establish my own group. I was 33 at that time. And in fact, I did not have the 3 years of postdoc experience. Okay, it was good 6 months short of 3 years. Okay, but nobody says this openly. Nobody wants to say this, but it matters. I have seen such bright people just suffer so much simply because they are on the other side of this age, unsaid age, red line. The policy makers who are sitting here, I urge you to think about it, that how can we bring about some positive change. Age matters definitely. What are you going to do about it? So this is how I came to Mohali. This is my group at Mohali. It was far from a smooth ride. When I joined, of course, it was a new institute, and which is true for most places anywhere in the world. I did not have an office space. I did not have lab space. I did not have friends. I'm a very social person. I did not have a family to call of my own. I did not have forest department permits. I could not enter the forest. However, I was a woman, and there was a lot of committees in which women need to be, for the semblance of gender parity. Now this is an inverted pyramid. You have so few women and you have so many committees in which you want at least one woman. So this pyramid is going to topple. So hire more women. So I was faculty in charge, cultural activities, hostel warden, landscape committee, creche committee, PhD admission committee, course register. I ran out of space, but there are more committees. And the problem is I never said no. Partly because I thought I'll get to meet all of these people, which is so foolish. But I also was very worried to say no. I thought that, it will go against me in some way, that if I say that, no, I'm not going to do this. So I said yes to everything. What I did not realize was 13 hours of teaching awaited me. I was doing theory and practical courses, not for 15 students, not for a batch of 15 students. When I entered the classroom, I was shocked. I had a heart attack. There were 150 students. One of them is sitting there. And I had no idea how do you conduct it. So there was no mentorship. We just did not know what to do. But somehow this was the one thing that I think I do quite okay. I was fine with teaching. I wrote many grants. I got some. I got several rejections. I was trying to write papers. I can't do any field work. So I don't have any lab. So I was writing papers from previous work, trying to attract students. Being the only ecologist doesn't really work in your favor. When you have Center for Ecological Sciences, Wildlife Institute of Science, then why would anybody come to SM Mohali? Applying for forest department permits. But I want to tell you that, this was not the worst part. Okay, it gets worse. I was told that there is no policy to do field work outside of the Tri-City, because what will we do once you go away? Which is a fair point that, what are they going to do? I am supposed to teach, I am supposed to do all this committee thing. What if I just scoot off for field work? What is the department going to do? It was a very serious problem. But there was no policy. So I was a caged bird. I had my maternity break and related challenges. Turned out that I ended up teaching a course remotely while I was on maternity break. Then my infant daughter had some serious health issues, so I had to take another break. I acquired labs out of friendships. So somebody donated their lab space to me because it was her art studio and she thought that her art studio can wait, my lab should start. Somebody else allowed me to share the office with him because I could speak Tamil. So, strangely in India, all of these things work. But then I also had to leave those lab spaces because somebody else needed that particular space much more than I did. And so I cooperated in the hope that, it is delayed reciprocity, but maybe it will come back. I was single parenting because my husband was not co-located with me. So it was extremely difficult, and for the first 5 years, I didn't go anywhere. I did not attend any meetings. Even if YIM was happening, I just couldn't have attended. But I used this time to reinvent. Now I can't work on the things I wanted to work on, the Western Himalayan birds. I can't do that. What do? I got zebrafish and I started looking at how do they navigate under turbid conditions, and all lab-based work in tanks. Then I started to work on babblers, which are found everywhere. It was found on our campus, so I don't really need to leave the Tri-City. And this is how I sort of adapted and reinvented I'm still asking the same questions. I have tweaked my model systems a bit. So I had to do that. It is something in your own way you might have to do. I continued my work on crickets, which was mostly looking at signal evolution, but I hired, I got one person who was an expert in taxonomy, and she helped us find a new cricket, and it was a new species. Eventually, everything sort of worked out. I have a big group. Students joined. We also managed to get permits to work all over India. Forest Department permits came through. And I found a community of people who were ready to support me, not only my PI. I especially want to thank the founding director of SM Mohali, Professor Satyamurthy, who saw the needs, my friends from all over, and last but not the least, mothers in science who reminded me that, academia is not incompatible with family life. So this was very useful for me to realize that I can still do it. So thanks to all of them, I finally had my own family, and all is well. What did I learn? Cooperate, communicate, collaborate. Research culture of the group has to be set at the very beginning. Enhance and keep updating your skills. You will need to diversify. There is no right time for any personal milestone. Just do it. Age matters, so time your dispersal, establish a group early if it is possible. For the evaluators, each journey is unique. Please do not compare apples and oranges. Academia can be a very lonely place, so find your community. And I think, again, I don't want to give this lecture to others, but I think chasing awards and recognition is not really a good idea, because these are reflected glory, but of course we only see things as reflections, so there is that. You don't need to struggle in silence. Please seek help, but remember to pay forward. And lastly, it's a marathon and not a sprint. What matters is to keep your spirits high and keep walking. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention I also have a poem, not my own. I don't have a translation, and I am already 1 minute late, but may I still read it out?
Yes,
Yeah. This is the what I have sort of tried to live by. किसी को गिराया न खुद को उछाला, कटा जिंदगी का सफ़र धीरे धीरे, जहाँ आप पहुँचे छलांगे लगा के, वहाँ मैं भी आया मगर धीरे धीरे. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjari.
Well, I met Sashi in 2016, and I did not have these many people I did not know. And at that time, what I realized was he kept telling me that, you're doing this work, you go and talk about this everywhere. This is what you had told, you may not remember. And you said that you should talk about your work everywhere. And I realized that that was such a brief meeting. And I realized that Shashi was doing this with so many people, sort of just being there to encourage them. And I think, since academia is such a lonely place, each one of us, if we can just simply be there for each other and say that we are doing okay, you go talk about your work, I think that gives a lot of inspiration. So thanks for that. It matters. And I wish I was there for the YIM. It would have helped me.
We have a question at the back.
Ma'am, thank you so much for the enlightening talk. You covered all aspects of your life, which most of us can relate. My only question is, since you covered most of the forest in India, did you get any difference in the acoustic communication between the insects? Were there any differences?
Not only across different forest type. So even if you change the plants that are present within the rainforest itself, the community, there's a huge turnover of community. Yes, it does change.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Manjari. A very nice talk, and I think it was more fascinating seeing how the acoustic evolution has happened over a period of time. My question is more on the teaching background. Since we are more trained during our PhD from the research perspective, how was your experience navigating the teaching forum when we look at the positions which demand bifurcation of research and teaching?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I didn't spend time on this. Basically, at least I was very aware that I'm in ICER, and ICER is Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. In the name itself, education comes first. So teaching is our primary task, and it just so happens that I am not so bad at it. So it worked out well, but it was a daunting, very, it can be very uh, scary. You see so many students and then you have to correct also. It takes a huge chunk of your time, but it is something that I greatly enjoy because I think my major output has been the generations of people that I have trained. I have trained so many master students who are all over the world pursuing various careers, including academia, and that is my real output. So I think we should see it in a positive light. Yeah.
Gerlin has a question.
Thank you. Very nice talk, and I particularly enjoyed the insights into field work. I didn't never see it that way, because I have no experience. So that was interesting. My question to you, though, is: would you do it again? I mean, you went cold into your group leader position without mentors. What would you recommend to the young people sitting here?
Exactly the opposite. That's why I said you have to find your community. And I would never, it's not as though, people wished bad and then they decided that they should throw me into a rainforest and let me walk through the rainforest. So I also did not think about it. But since given that we don't have the kind of accident insurance and calamity insurance and things like that, I will never let my students do this. So I wouldn't do that again. And this is what I have learned, that how we can, what we did not get in our during our experience, what we should not pass on. Yeah.
Thank you. I actually meant taking a group leader position that early.
Yes, absolutely.
You would do that again?
Yes, absolutely. Because I absolutely do not believe that learning will happen only during a PhD or your postdoc. As a PI, I'm still the same human being. I'm still learning.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I've recently started my lab and there is actually little to no funding, and you've been through same. So in that time I want to ask you, how do you manage to keep the research going, or how do you manage yeah, keep your students motivated when there is nothing
Yeah.
around?
So two things. One, it's not as though there was no money. ICER gives you some money. I had some equipment which was already so Professor Satyamurthy ensured that we had some equipment, and there's some amount of money which can be used for consumables. But also, so that helped. But also, the kind of work that I do, we need more money, not so much for equipment and chemicals. We need money for travel and things like that. But since that was already ruled out because of forest department permits and things like that, I was doing frugal science, but it still resulted in uh, quote unquote high impact papers. We found interesting ideas. I don't know if everyone can actually afford to do that. So I will not say that, so what if you don't have money? Go ahead and be brave. Doesn't work. Your science might need money. So then you will just have to raise money for yourself. There is no other way around it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh, Hi, Manjari. Wonderful talk. I have a question regarding the process of navigating to say no. As a new PI, like I am a new PI myself, I kind of get to say yes to a lot of the committees and all those things just to make a community, to find your own community. So, how did you move from a yes person to saying no? Like, how did you navigate that?
Yeah, because at one point I realized I was completely drowning. So I just said no to everyone. That way, no one is unhappy, because I'm saying no to everyone. I resigned from 7 committees in one day.
Do you want to do that?
If you're drowning and if you really need to get your work done, you have to. You have to learn to say no.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Manjari.